What's going on, guys? It's 66 here, and man, I got a long video for you guys tonight. I'll be honest with you, woke up today with some interesting information from a good buddy of mine, fellow Metroid enthusiast RikuShirran. Now, I'll be honest, this video goes on for a bit, but there's some spicy details and even some spoilers for those of you that don't know the lore and the story of Metroid. But with that being said, hopefully a little bit of maybe insider information, quote unquote, and a good amount of theory and speculation on the story. But that's enough of me rambling. Guys, we're going to dive right in. Hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe if you haven't already. So, without further ado, man, big news time. Big news on the Metroid Dread front. Coming from the one, the only RikuShirran. How's it going, man? And honestly, dude, I'm so late to the party with making videos like this, and my God, you, you, sir, have been on top of a gold mine of some Metroid Dread story information right now. So, I'm gonna let you take it away real quick on some of your findings. We've got the video, of course, pulled up. Got you pulled up right here. It's a little bit of a jank setup, but you know what? This is going to be eye-opening for a lot of Metroid Dread story enthusiasts and theorists out there.
Oh yeah, because the stuff that they dropped today on the UK website is absolutely nutty. And like you said, I've been trying to stay on top of every bit of information that's been coming out. There's been wonderful people on Twitter that have helped it by, posting what they've found. So like shout outs to Taurus Volt and Galdrex, both are amazing people as well. They were actually the people who let me know about this with their post on Twitter earlier today while I was at my brunch meeting. But like this here is massive because a lot of us have been theorizing about, okay, so like the Chozo that we've seen, in the past with the what'd you call it, with the like goop.
Yes.
The goop. That's what we'll go with. The
So
goop.
gooey.
Yeah, it's gooey. But like there's been that. There's been a whole bunch of just general information that they've been showing, but like the reveal of Craigs, which now, honestly, what we're going to be looking at here in just a second is really going to be, really makes me question that reveal. Because that means we could be seeing a lot more, because we've seen that there's test tubes and stuff like that where it looks like they're creating other creatures on ZDR. So there's a lot that kind of ties into this one specific enemy in particular that we're going to look at.
For sure, man. It's eye-opening to multiple aspects too on how the Chozo are in general. So when you really think about it, they're the reason why Metroids exist too. So,
oh yeah. I know everyone's like, yeah, the Chozo are peaceful, but they also had their warfaring side too. And I think Dread is going to do a lot to build on that, because we've seen just from the get-go, Samus having a Chozo suit that was built for battle.
Oh yeah.
Well, it had to come from somewhere, so they had to have a military at one point. And you definitely want something like that when you're exploring a planet, trying to take over whatever. And if you're trying to enforce peace, you definitely need some sort of military with a lot of might.
Oh, no doubt, dude.
Especially on a galactic scale. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much they dive into this. And I think we're going to get a lot into what's going on, where their wars happen, stuff like that. We may not get like specific dates, but we'll probably get callbacks to it. We'll probably get more information on what happened on SR388 that was shown in the Chozo memories, and even just the memories they've already shown, like the updated versions of them, are huge. So it's gonna prove to be very interesting.
Oh yeah, and honestly, what it really comes down to is this is going to be the most story-packed Metroid yet. Already with what we've seen video-wise through cutscenes and just little snippets that we're being fed right now from Nintendo themselves. This game is really good at letting you know just enough of what's going on here on Planet ZDR and give you enough insights on previous entries, because we all know that, you know, Metroid 1 through 3 obviously is essentially purely just visual storytelling kind of games. They kind of give you the story through what you see in the backgrounds, what you see through the games, what you experience through gameplay, but never really tell you until you get to 4 Fusion. And then you start having Samus's monologues and stuff like that. But now you get Dread. You have full-blown cutscenes. You have the moments in the fights where they showed the Samus versus that one Chozo, the general. They showed that little bit of interaction so far with the Chozo scientist. And of course they give you so many like other just I would call callback to prior entries as well, of course, like Samus's youth to what happened in Fusion, what happened on SR388, and what happened in Super as well. So I mean, there's so much story and there's so many things that we've been fed so far, but they're still keeping mysteries, which of course that's I mean, it's a blessing. But what we got here on the screen right now, I don't know if they intended for people to really see what's going on yet, because it's like me and you were talking a little while ago about they hinted to it was Volume 1, right? You said it was Volume 1 where they hinted to there might be X, but maybe not.
Yeah, they kind of done that through several of the Dread reports themselves. I think one was the hard confirmation of that, if I remember correctly. It might have been 2. But I know one of them, they were like, yeah, there might be X, but might not be. And they've kind of been toying with the idea of the X is there or isn't there kind of deal. And when I first saw that, you know, immediately I was like, if they're going to be like, but are they really there when they first announced it, and then turned around and we're like, but they're not there, then I'm like,
something's a little funky going on here. Yeah.
Kind of deal. Well, where they were basically going, you know, they're there, but they're not. And I'm like, guys, just admit they are. When you do a double redirect, immediately my brain goes, yeah, they're there. And granted, these may not be necessarily the same X. Especially with, like I was saying earlier, we see all the experimentation and stuff like that going on, that it could be like an amped up version of the X that's been modified in some way or shape or form to give them more control over it. Similar to the Metroids themselves, especially if the scientist is the same one from SR388, which it looks like, then he's had plenty of time to study these creatures and find a way to alter them to their benefit, you know? Or made them stronger and they ran wild. One of the two. There's not many options you can go from there.
Yeah, and so what we got up on the screen right now, of course, this is kind of major, because this is, you know, the biggest hint drop, and I'm still trying to gather whether it was intentional or not myself, because the first thing I'm going to point out right now on this screen, right here by my cursor, this is something that Riku was shown via his friends on Twitter that he already gave a shout out to, is there was this little 11-second trailer posted from Nintendo UK. It was on their website, called Beam, Metroid Dread. As you can see right here, currently unlisted for who knows. I've only had about 2,000 views so far, I being one of the 58 likes that you see on this video right here, because this gives a huge hint. So I'm going to go ahead and go to full screen. We're going to go over and watch this video real quick, and we're going to see what we've been talking about. Keep in mind what we just went over, guys, because this is big. So here we go. Starting this trailer, I'm going to do a full speed, and we're going to point something out here right afterwards. So here we go.
Yeah, it should be coming up right here after this.
Something
right
major.
there.
Yes.
Right there. And you can see it plain as day. It's front and center. And to be honest, I don't think they meant to do that.
I think you're right. I think that was something that was supposed to be hidden. So for those of you that may have not caught that at full speed, we're going to slow it down real quick. So
yeah, it's roughly 5 seconds in.
So we're going to go
for the
here,
video.
Settings, playback speed. We're going to 0.25, and I'm going to stop it at just the right moment. So keep your eye on the lower part of the screen and to the left of my cam right here, and you're going to see something. So you see slow-mo, got the power beam going on. A little bit of the
and I
wide
love the
beam.
fact that we're getting these in-depth looks at the beams themselves too.
I'm still trying to figure out why they decided to change it to wide beam instead of spacer, but that's discussion for another time. And boom, right here, right there. You know what that is right there?
That is a beautiful X.
That is an X parasite. And I'm noticing this weird. Do you notice kind of like this goopy kind of look, like black and green on the statue? It kind of right there at the bottom left of the base of the statue, and a little bit right in front of Samus on the right of that. I'm not sure if that's. I mean, to me that's. It looks kind of goopy. I mean, maybe I'm just kind of drawing into this a little bit more than I should when it comes to that. But I mean, we're seeing. Yeah.
Because this is something that's not just in this trailer either. Like that black goop you can see in quite a few of the other trailers. Whether it be those Chozo or there's a couple of other statues and even floors and one door, if I remember correctly, I think I've got a picture of somewhere, that has that same goop on it.
Yeah.
And it caught my eye back in when they updated the Dread International website and they put out the Czech trailer, because you can really see it really good in the Czech trailer because it's like actually on the floor in the foreground where Samus is fighting at.
Yeah.
But most of the time when you do see it, it's kind of back on different items, like you were saying here with the statue, or at the base of a wall or something, and it makes it hard to tell exactly what it is. It could be like, I don't know, residue from the X, which would be interesting. I don't think we've really seen too much residue outside of, the zombie scientist zombies that we kill in the beginning of Metroid Fusion.
As say, other than those, and I mean, the only other goopy part I could think of in Fusion is the nightmare fight when its face starts drooping. But I mean, you're right about that. But I mean, you also gotta think the death animation of any creature you kill in Fusion, kind of like how it like unmorphs and then turns back into its base gelatinous X form as well. So.
Oh yeah.
Back then was everything was on the power of the GBA, so I mean they couldn't give this kind of high resolution, these textures for this. This just kind of goes more detailed.
And see, something that also kind of like catches my eye with this specific X parasite is that it is a red X parasite.
Yes.
Meaning it had to have, if we go by fusion logic, that is, it had to have come from a Ghidorah or a form of like door blocking enemy, or, a higher end enemy, because you don't see reds all that often, since they do fully replenish health and missiles. So the fact that we're seeing a red one here is either a rare occurrence, or they've decided to change what the red ones end up doing, which could be a possibility that instead now they just refill missiles, but green X were the ones that did that in Fusion. So I don't think they would do that.
I wouldn't Wouldn't think so either, but at the same time, Red X and Fusion never remorphed in anything else, which brings me to the next part of what we're getting ready to see. I'm going to go ahead and unpause right here. Keep an eye on the X. As you see right here, it goes through the wall right over here, and then boom, it instantly starts going through a little morphing phase down here at the bottom, and instantly into like a flame cannon style creature before it cuts away.
Yeah, which is very interesting. And I know you said like the red eggs don't ever reform into anything, but if you leave them alone long enough around like the carcass of one of the scientists, they'll actually reform that scientist or even the Hornodes. I don't know if they do it for all creatures, but there are some creatures that I've seen it reconstitute in my playthroughs of Fusion.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because once it does that, once you defeat it, it's no longer a red X. It either becomes a yellow or a green.
Yeah. Like I said, it kind of reconstitutes itself. So it's hard to say, at least in this trailer. I mean, there's not enough information on why that one specifically is a red X. Obviously, all we're really seeing is Samus in that specific part where they give away, hey, X are very much still alive, very much here on ZDR. But here's a clip of one that you may miss X, and Samus just blasts away at this bot right above her on the roof. I mean, we don't know, but we could speculate this much is for sure. X are there. How many different kinds of X? I mean, in Fusion we know of 3, of course, the yellow, the green, and red, respectively, doing whether it's health or ammunition replenishment, or red being a full replenish, or, well, a massive replenish of a little bit everything. The other thing is we may potentially see more, because now that Aeon has been introduced thanks to 2017 Samus Returns, there could be something like an X that replenishes Aeon tank out there. By all means, we don't even know for sure if X will be utilized for replenishing anything, because, I mean, as far as we know right now, the little Aeon orbs and health orbs still drop from enemies as well. So far, up until now, we haven't seen X from anything that has been destroyed in a trailer that's been given to us. So we're not given reason to believe that the X have fully taken over ZDR. We're given reason to believe, like, speculation on, like you mentioned earlier, these X are potentially held in captivity by the scientist Chozo. Or, I mean, by all means, they were in captivity, and in the midst of all the hell that's going on ZDR right now, of all these unknown things that we got, that the X are escaping. Which just adds to the dread of what's going on here.
Yeah, because, like, in some of these trailers, too, and even some of the photos that they've got posted on, like, the international website, the UK website, and the Japanese website, because I try to keep up with all 3 as they're updated. The UK one, not so much, because that one's taken longer than all the others to really have anything different from the American or the international or the Japanese website.
Yeah.
But you notice as well, like, there is definitely signs of a struggle between, like, 2 different factions of Chozo, because there's red banners with one symbol and black banners with a separate symbol.
Yes.
They're both very similar, but the tops of them are different, because if I remember correctly, the one on the red has like 2 notches above it, kind of like almost like a parentheses, but kind of coming in like this. And then the black one, if I remember correctly, has a full arc going over it. And granted, that could have been just a lighting thing that I saw that made the edges disappear, but it looks like there's been some sort of struggle, because you can see that there are tattered versions in the room with the Chozo warrior, what I'm assuming is the first one we fight, since it's not on the top of the planet like the other one is. You can see, like, their statues have been destroyed, this room's been messed up, there's literally a pile of rubble with Chozo dead bodies in it.
Yeah, very gruesome sight, honestly.
Yeah. So like, there's definitely been some sort of struggle, whether it's been between, like two ends of the Chozo factions, or if it's been like infected and non-infected Chozo. Um, we have yet to see that.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we already do know from Metroid lore in general, especially from the Prime game, specifically Prime 1, that there were opposing factions to begin with. So that has always been a thing for all you that have played through the Prime series, of course, and of course in Prime 1, if you make sure you scan all the Chozo lore and everything, you do come to find out that there is two opposing sides in this struggle, and anywhere that you see any kind of Chozo ruins in any game, you can always see that there's been some sort of struggle there. And it just kind of continues here on ZDR. We don't know anything, of course, about this planet. They've already said that this is currently an unexplored planet in the Metroid universe, obviously, other than the natural inhabitants and the Chozo that kind of, I guess you could say, colonized the planet. Who knows how many years ago. And honestly, this is kind of a difficult theory right here too, because you don't know if these Chozo have been there this whole time, if they have maybe settled on that planet during Samus's lifespan so far, because we're given a reason to believe that Chozo were nomadic. And there is a peaceful side and an aggressive side, so we don't know, anything other than, hey, there's this planet. This planet is ZDR. Samus, you're going to this planet. But good luck, we don't know anything about it. We've sent research robots, bio research robots. Why would they send research robots? My original theory on that was the fear of X being on the planets, so they don't want to send human life forms. Galactic Federation learned from their mistake of sending people down to SR3D8 and see what happened for that.
yeah,
Which
and that's a
explains the Emmy,
oddly smart approach for the Galactic Federation, to be honest.
right?
Because their philosophy throughout every single other game that we've played has been throw some troops at it, and if those troops don't do it, send in Samus.
Every game, honestly, just about, yeah. It's like, hey, these guys, we're just gonna throw bodies at them, and eventually, once that death toll gets too high, Samus, it's your turn, get in there. So.
Oh yeah. And see, it's interesting too, because like they send the Emmy, and then there was that scene that we got recently that was the purple Emmy, and it looked like it was about to kill Samus. But then you see, after like a flip of scenes and then a flip back, you see Samus laying on the ground, and it's just standing there deactivated. And when she turns around, that scientist Chozo is standing there. And you can even tell Samus is very startled by it, because she turns around and immediately has her gun pointed at him from on the ground. So I don't doubt the scientist is probably going to be helping us, but I don't necessarily think it's for good reasons.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably be more so like pulling the wool over Samus's eyes, while the warrior Chozo is actually not the bad guy and trying to stop everything. I feel like that's the kind of way they're going to go about it, just because just having him as a blatant, oh yeah, he's the bad guy, he's trying to kill everything, he's infected by X, doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't seem enthralling. It's like, yeah, cool, this is a cool battle, but like, he has no character development, no arc to him as a villain. And you want your villains to have that. That way it draws you into the game more, especially if you're going story heavy like Infusion, and it definitely looks like they're taking all the best elements from like Super and Fusion and mixing them together, and even Samus Returns, and making it as cohesive of a mix as possible.
Definitely. Yeah, this
And
game is taking the best of all the side scroller games and they're just jamming it together. Because, I mean, first, what I see right now, it's not going to have that extreme linearity that Fusion has, which I have no personal issues with. It was actually my first Metroid game I ever played. But that aside, I mean, that they still have heavy exploration. There's going to be a lot of backtrack. So it's going to have that Metroidvania appeal for all diehard fans of that kind of genre in general. And I mean, honestly, now that they've had all these years to experiment with, say 1 through 3, of course, and then going really story heavy with Fusion, and then all these HD updates, graphical, technological updates for Samus Returns, and I feel like Samus Returns was their way, not just like saying, hey, this is just something that people have been wanting a long time. Here's a reboot or a revamp of, Metroid 2. I mean, sure, fan service, but I feel like that was also them really giving that final push to kind of see where they can go for Dread. Because, I mean, Dread's...
Oh, I definitely agree with that. Because, like, Mercury Steam themselves wanted to make Metroid Fusion. That's what they approached Nintendo with. They were like, hey, look, we've already done some of this work. We've put out kind of a playable gameplay, or we've made this playable gameplay demo of a Metroid Fusion remake. What do y'all want to do with it? And Nintendo went, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
We don't need a Fusion remake just yet. So instead, let's do Samus Returns. So that's why we ended up with Fusion mode, I believe, in Samus Returns to begin with, and it was locked behind the amiibo.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a way that they got to do a little bit of what they wanted to with Fusion, but also let them play with a new one. And then they're like, now that we've seen you can do it, and you can do it really well, what if we give you the reins to make the next one? And they're like, wait, what?
It's like, it's time. It's time. It's finally time. 19 years has been long enough.
Oh, yeah. And if you pull the video back up, one thing I do want to note, because we were talking about that black goop, if you go right here and you start to look down at the X as it's reforming.
Oh, yeah. It has that
turns into black goop.
Yeah, let's get right about right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of see it as a right there. It starts morphing black goop, and even when it reforms, it's still just goop before it, you see it's goop before it starts actually getting like some sort of texture. So
yeah. So I think that's a good way of being able to hard confirm that the Chozos that we've seen that are black goopy with the big flappy mouths, are straight up X-Parasite Chozos. Which to me, I think is a really cool concept, because they'll retain all the memories and the knowledge of those Chozos, which makes them a greater threat. So say if the scientist is infected and has been infected for quite some time, especially after either when leaving or after leaving SR388, that means that those X-Parasites could have had all that time for SR388 till they got to ZDR to perfect and allow him to make a greater, more powerful, more deadly X-Parasite that could easily overtake Metroids and stuff like that, because the Metroids were their only predators.
yeah.
So how do you get rid of your only predator? Well, if the Metroid can kill a Ice X, which we still have no clue whether it actually can kill an Ice X or not, then
Yeah, that's
we know that it is still weak to ice. So if it can do ice powers, or even make sure that the Metroids can't attack them by latching onto them by freezing whatever it touches or whatever, then
yeah. And that's
a deadly foe.
That goes into more theory and speculation that X isn't just a mindless threat as well. Because when you really think about it, SR388 does not have any like super cold environments that we know of.
Yeah.
But they used the cold environments from the BSL space station in Fusion to get that kind of frozen form. And the X, before you get the various suit, those X will beeline at Samus in that game. So
Oh yeah. And Adam even
smart.
says in Fusion that the X aren't brainless creatures like we thought they were.
Yeah.
Because they learn, they they increase their intelligence by absorbing other creatures and just downloading data from computers and stuff. Like they can physically process data from a computer.
And another
So
thing too is I feel like, adding to that, I feel like they operate off of like a hive mind. Kind of like Legion, so to speak.
Yeah, I definitely say that they're hive mind. So it would make sense that they were able to do more. And even now, if you think about it, in Fusion, there is a big loophole where they jettisoned that Metroid breeding facility, right?
Oh yeah.
And Adam flat out tells you at the end of the game the only way that you could have gotten rid of the X on both SR388 and in the station was to crash the station into the planet. But then why did you jettison the Metroid breeding capsule with an SAX of all things in it?
Exactly.
Into space.
I mean, there's
and blow it up.
And like you said, and that's a very good thought too. Like honestly, dude, who's to say that the SAX, that one specific one, actually died? Who's to say? Even if it was brought back to its base form from the explosion, I mean, you know that attacking them just takes essentially whatever they've, hosted and just gets rid of that outer shell, so to speak, and brings back to their gelatinous form. So, I mean, even if for some reason that was the last X, I mean, they also self-reproduce. So, I mean, the threat is still there.
On top of that, we saw it with what, 3-4 Metroids all trying to feed on it, and they weren't actually killing it. They were disrupting it a bit, but they weren't killing it by any means. So, like, at most, you just sent an SAX into space, killed all the Metroids that were trapped in there with it, and now it's free floating in space and can go wherever it wants.
Another interesting theory too, another funny theory about that is, who's to say that all those Metroids are dead too?
Exactly. Like, one of those Metroids could have gotten out. Granted, I think the Metroids would definitely be more likely to die than the X in that explosion, because we know that they are weak to concussive blasts. So freezing them and concussive blast are really the only two actual weaknesses of a Metroid.
And the vacuum of space is also said to be very cold, technically. So, I mean, that is a very slim chance, and, well, that's up to Nintendo if they want to continue the story that way, but it is an interesting theory. Because, I mean, as of right now, Samus is still seen as the last surviving Metroid because of her Metroid DNA injection, so...
Oh yeah, and with, like, once you launch the Metroid breeding station off, if you return to those areas, because you can speed booster up to the other one, you can see the X flying around out in space. Like, you can go out there and the X will fly out of the station and through space and then back into the station.
That is very true.
So, like, obviously, they can live in space.
Yeah, it's just a blob. So, I mean, blobs, they zip and zoom. Flying blobs, So, there's a lot of food for thought. And who would have thought this 11-second trailer right here would have been such a huge thing for, for the right people to be able to spot this. Because, I mean, there's so many theories out there right now, and they're on all sides of the spectrum where people, I mean, I think more people rather than not, probably assumed that X would be back in some way, shape, or form, of course. And of course, you also have the group that's like, well, maybe not. You know, Samus is the last Metroid. Samus can technically also be considered the last X. She has all this DNA in her body all at the same time. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many theories out there, but this right here, this kind of just, I would say, just opens the door to ZDR's depths
Endless
just a little bit
possibilities.
more. Yes, of endless possibility, because now we know. We know the X are in the game. Obviously, that might have been pushed to the public a little too soon because they didn't want to full blown say, yeah, X are there. Obviously, because they, like you said earlier, they backtrack on that statement earlier. But now I guess what's left up to the community and you guys as a viewer out there is honestly the speculation on how they got there, or if maybe, once again, the X were already there. Maybe Chozo found a way to bring a couple there and try to do their experiments. It's pure speculation at this point, but all I know is this game is a game that every Metroid enthusiast needed. And I'm sure you've noticed that all the initial hate that Dread started getting right after announcement about it not being a Prime game and all that stuff has done nothing but turn to love, because people have started to realize how great this game is and how important this game is, how much story and how much we're going to learn from this game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was kind of shock to a lot of people because they're like, oh, a new 2D Metroid being produced by an indie developer. Well, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
so what if it's produced by an indie developer? They're under the flag of Nintendo right now, which
exactly.
still makes it a first party release.
Exactly.
And if
And where was
Nintendo
that
gave
hate
them
when
the
Samus Returns came back? I mean, same people,
yeah,
guys.
yeah, and so like with the way Dread has, like, the more they've shown of Dread, people have just been like, some people who were kind of shocked about it and weren't happy that it was happening to begin with. I wouldn't say they were necessarily weren't happy about it happening. It was more so that they thought it was going to be bad because it was an indie developer. And the more they've really shown they've taken their time, they've taken and put in the love and care that we see out of like Retro Studios
Oh,
when they
yeah.
did Prime 1, 2, and 3. You know, Retro always put all their heart, all their love, their dedication into the Prime series. So seeing that same thing coming from Mercury Steam, like, I felt that with Samus Returns, but a lot of people just kind of skipped over Samus Returns because they were like, oh, it's just a remake of an old game, big deal, so what? It is a phenomenal game. Yes, it's a little bit more linear than a typical Metroid game, but that's not a bad thing because the original that it was based off of was linear. But, you know, it really is a phenomenal game, and seeing them take all the love and everything that they learned from doing Samus Returns, where people were like, well, we want more exploration. They took all that feedback that they got from Samus Returns, and they're like, okay, here,
Yep.
we'll give it to you.
Oh yeah, this is a true project of love from Nintendo and Mercury Steam. So I have all the hope in the world that this game is going to be just truly successful. And as I said before, it's the game that we needed. It's the game as like a community as a whole and massive fan base that Metroid has really garnered over the years has truly needed. And I feel like this game will be a great entry point too for a lot of newcomers. Obviously, you hear from a lot of other Nintendo reporters, everything like that. You know, there's that Switch effect, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like that's going to help as well. But Nintendo, you could tell they are really, truly pushing this game, and it shows that they care about the Metroid franchise and the Operation Metroid Dread movement out there. You know, it's really shown that this game has got nothing but hope. It may be all about Dread, but Metroid as a whole, there's hope, guys. And
Yeah.
so, well, honestly, it's been a great talk, but I think we're going to wrap it up here because, you know, with what we know so far, there's only so much that we can speculate. Obviously, this trailer that, you know, you were shown right here might have been something that was probably not supposed to be fully disclosed yet, but here it is. And still, as of right now, at 6:30 Eastern Time, still enlisted. So we'll see how this goes. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to every bit. So, to anybody that happens to stumble across this video, if you have any extra speculation theories, feel free to make sure that you leave them down in the comments below. We would love to see what you have to say. We'll try to answer on any kind of questions or on any kind of theories that, you know, you guys post. We'll see what we can do. Guys, make sure you check out, of course, my buddy right above me, RikuShirran, fellow Metroid enthusiast. I will leave a link to his initial video talking about this as well in the description, of course. So make sure you go and subscribe to his channel, ring that notification bell, as well as mine. Make sure, guys, you hit that like button, that subscribe, that bell, because I want to start really diving into some Metroid talk and probably do a bit more with, of course, Riku here because, you know, when we start talking Metroid theories, you know, it goes on. This video right now, good length. Hopefully you guys enjoy every bit of it. And with that being said, guys, we'll hopefully catch you on the next video. So remember, bye, Metroid Dread.